Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. During a financial audit, I discovered my husband had been transferring money into an offshore account managed by his sister. When I confronted him, he said, "You spend too much, we needed a backup plan." His mother said, "You're just mad you didn't think of it first." I hired a forensic accountant who traced one transfer directly to a property purchase. I drove there and found a fully furnished home with photos of a woman I'd never met who was listed as. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who needed to hire a forensic accountant, but here I am. I'm 44, been married to Ethan for 17 years. We live in Temecula, California. We run a small landscaping company together. Nothing flashy. Just a handful of trucks, 6 employees, and steady work. I've always handled the books because I'm good with numbers. And Ethan, well, he's not. This year, during tax season, something didn't add up. The income was way higher than usual. Our contracts with those commercial lots in Moretta and Many had paid off big time. But our business account didn't reflect it, not even close. I expected we'd finally have a cushion, maybe even enough to take a vacation or redo our kitchen, but no. Same balance. Actually, it looked lower at first. I blamed myself. Thought maybe I had double paid something or missed an invoice. But then I noticed a series of transfers labeled vendor equipment, repeated. Ones, same amounts, same days of the month, and the routing numbers not from any vendor we work with. I asked Ethan about it one night after dinner. He didn't even flinch, just leaned back in his chair, shrugged and said, "You spend too much, we needed a backup plan." Just like that. Like I was some impulsive child burning through money. Like I was the problem. I remember sitting there frozen, trying to make sense of what I just heard. I asked him what he meant by we. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Me and my sister. We've been setting money aside just in case." Just in case what exactly? I asked him. Where the money was. He said it was secure offshore, couldn't be touched unless something bad happened. I called his mother the next day, desperate for someone in his family to help me understand. Her exact words. "You're just mad you didn't think of it first." That's when I knew they were all in on it. I was the outsider, the fool. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I went into survival mode. I reached out to a friend whose ex-husband tried to hide assets during their divorce. She gave me the name of a forensic accountant she swore by. Her name was Clara, older woman, tough, no nonsense. She looked over everything and said, "I've seen worse, but this is up there." Over the next few weeks, she found 5 different transfers that raised red flags. They were routed from our business account to a holding company in Nevada, then moved again to a bank in the Cayman Islands. One of the transfers for $47,500 didn't follow the pattern. It was traced directly to a real estate holding firm in Miami. That firm had just bought a townhouse in Scottsdale, Arizona, paid in full. No mortgage, clean transaction. It wasn't in Ethan's name. It was in the name of the shell company, but it was his money. Our money. I made up a lie, told Ethan I was going to visit my cousin in Bakersfield for a weekend, packed a small bag, got in my car and drove straight to Scottsdale. The neighborhood was quiet, new, and way nicer than anything we could afford without hiding money. Gated entrance, tall palms, neighbors with matching lawn flamingos. I parked across the street and watched the house. The place looked lived in, patio furniture out back, shoes by the door, wind chimes on the porch. A woman pulled into the driveway around 3 p.m. in a gray SUV. She got out with a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. They were laughing. She had a key. They went inside. And minutes later, I walked up and rang the bell. Nobody answered. I stepped back and glanced through the front window, and there he was. Ethan, sitting on the couch, a baby in his lap. The same man who told me we needed a backup plan. There were photos everywhere. Him with the little girl, him with the baby, him and her family, pictures, pumpkin patches, Santa Mall photos. I took pictures through the window, every single one. I didn't even feel anger at that point. I felt empty. I came back home Sunday night. Ethan was in the garage messing with the weed whacker like nothing had happened. I walked in, dropped the photos on the workbench and said, "Explain." He looked at them, didn't even try to lie. "I didn't plan for it to happen," he said. "It just did." I asked if the kids were his. He nodded. "They're mine. I've been supporting them. That's why I moved the money." I asked how long it had been going on. 10 years, he said. "Since your first miscarriage. That hit like a truck." He said he never stopped loving me. Said he thought he could manage both lives, that he was doing his best. His best was draining our accounts, lying to my face, and giving another woman and her kids the life I thought we were building together. I walked away. I didn't even argue. I was too disgusted to waste more words. I called Clara. I told her I wanted everything documented. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Vivian. She was direct and smart, and had seen men like Ethan 100 times. She told me not to file yet, not until we had a full picture, not until we had proof of assets, transfers, business expenses, and that offshore account. So I waited. I played the part, cooked dinner, paid bills, smiled. Meanwhile, we pulled every record we could find. Clara found another $112,000 hidden. The sister, she was listed on every wire transfer. She was actively managing the offshore account from a credit union in New Jersey. She even had power of attorney. They weren't just hiding money. They were laundering it. That's when I called the IRS. I didn't expect it to move so fast. 2 weeks after I filed the whistleblower complaint, I got a call from an IRS investigator. I gave him Clara's full report. He was quiet while I explained the offshore transfers, the shell companies, and the fake equipment expenses. He said, "This is enough to open a fraud case within days. They froze our business accounts, not just the checking and payroll, but our lines of credit too." Ethan had no clue at first. He found out the hard way, trying to pay our crew after a big commercial job. He called me, furious. "What the hell is going on with the bank?" I pretended to be surprised. "Maybe you should ask your sister." He hung up. The next day, he stormed into our home office and threw a stack of papers on the desk. "I know what you did," he said. I didn't flinch. "Good. Then you know what's coming." He looked different, tired, defeated, like a man watching his little world fall apart. That night, he didn't come home. 2 days later, the IRS issued a subpoena for his sister, Sabrina. I heard from a friend in New Jersey that she was escorted out of her office by agents. Her kids were taken by CPS temporarily while she was questioned. Her husband, who didn't know anything about the offshore account, filed for separation. She tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message, "You don't understand what you've done. This was for family." Family? I was his wife. She chose to steal from me and call it loyalty. That's when I realized they'd never seen me as family. I was just an accessory, useful until I wasn't. I called Lena again, the other woman. This time I told her everything. That I was still legally married to Ethan, that he'd stolen money from our business, that the house she lived in was bought using my money, that the IRS was involved. Now she cried. She told me Ethan had told her I was dead, that he was a widower, that our landscaping company was his alone, and that he had started it from scratch after losing me in a car accident. She said she had no idea, and I believed her. She said she wanted to help, that she wanted to testify if it came to that. that she'd had enough of the lies too. Then she sent me something that hit like a gut punch. A video of Ethan's wedding to her, a fake ceremony in Lake Havasu, on a boat. He told her they couldn't legally marry yet because of paperwork issues with the business. She thought it was a formality. He was living a double life, with full photo albums, birthday parties, even holiday cards. The divorce papers were filed the next day. My lawyer served him while he was sitting in a booth at Denny's with one of his employees. He ripped them up in front of everyone, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. He started spiraling. One of our employees texted me later that week and said Ethan showed up drunk to a job site and screamed at a client for asking about an overcharge. Another one quit after Ethan threw a hammer across the yard during an install. I kept my distance. I didn't talk to him. Everything was going through lawyers now, but I knew what he was doing. He was trying to act like he still had control, like he wasn't about to lose everything. Clara gave me the final accounting. Ethan had moved close to $350,000 over 7 years. Some of it went to the Arizona house, some into accounts under fake names, some disappeared into cash withdrawals we couldn't trace, all of it. But we had enough. Enough to prove fraud, enough to show marital waste, enough for criminal charges if the IRS pushed for it. My lawyer said we had 2 options, settle or push it to court. I said, I want it all on the record. I want a judge to hear every dirty detail, and that's what we're doing. Lena agreed to testify. His sister's in deep already. Ethan is 1 court date away from being exposed in public, with photos, records, and the other woman sitting just 10 feet away. He thinks he's going to walk away clean. He has no idea what's next. A week before our first court hearing, Ethan filed an emergency petition. He claimed I had been mismanaging the business funds, that I'd gone rogue, hired people without his knowledge, and was funneling money to outside contractors. He said I should be investigated. My lawyer laughed when she read it. It's classic narcissist panic, she said. He's trying to confuse the timeline and make the judge think it's mutual dirt. But it wasn't, because we had receipts, literal ones. My accountant had everything, dated and time-stamped. Ethan's name was on every transfer, his signature on the vendor forms, his email on the wire requests. We responded with a motion for discovery. Ethan didn't show up for the hearing. After the accounts were frozen, Ethan started paying his guys under the table, in cash, or at least trying to. That worked for maybe 2 weeks before half the crew walked off. One of them, Javier, who'd worked with us for 6 years, called me out of the blue. I thought you should know, he said. Ethan told us you were stealing from him, said you were on drugs, said you were unstable. That one hit me hard because, while he was hiding a second family and stealing money, he told them I was the broken one. Javier didn't buy it. Neither did the rest of the guys. Turns out Ethan had borrowed from the company petty cash to buy a second work truck and never registered it under the business. It was sitting in Arizona. Lena sent me a picture. He'd been using it there the entire time, like it was a second business, a second life. So I sent the photo to my lawyer. Lena called me again. She sounded nervous. She said she found a locked metal box in the back of the garage. At first, she thought it was just old paperwork, but when she finally got it open, she found something else. Passports. One was Ethan's, the other a fake ID in a completely different name. Same photo, different birth date. And underneath, stacks of prepaid debit cards, the kind you can't trace once they're loaded and spent. She sent me pictures. I forwarded them straight to Clara. Clara called me the next day and said, "This isn't just tax fraud anymore. He was planning something." "What do you mean?" I asked. "He wasn't just hiding money. He was setting up to vanish." It started to make sense. The offshore account, the property in a different state, the fake ID, the prepaid cards. Ethan hadn't just been lying. He'd been preparing to disappear. Once our daughter turned 18, we have one biological child, Maya. She's now 17. I think he planned to bail, leave me with the crumbling business, and take off to Arizona full-time with Lena and the kids. I wouldn't have been able to track the money. I wouldn't have even known where to look. But I ruined the timeline by asking questions, by noticing the missing funds, by hiring Clara. Ethan was never going to come clean. He was going to vanish. Then came the phone call. It was from his mother. "I hope you're proud," she said. "You've ruined your own marriage over a little bit of money." She said Ethan had been under stress and that I never supported him the way a wife should. I didn't argue. I just recorded the call and sent it to my lawyer. Let the court hear how deep this all went. They treated it like I was the one who betrayed them, like I was the traitor for finally standing up for myself at Ethan's deposition. Something happened that nobody expected. He brought his own lawyer, a smug little guy from Riverside who clearly thought he was Perry Mason, and they tried to play hardball until my lawyer dropped the photos of the house, the IDs, the videos, the fake wedding. Then Lena walked into the room. She wasn't supposed to be there until later, but she showed up early and sat down quietly, in the back. Ethan turned pale. She stared at him, didn't say a word, and that's when it happened. Ethan cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he muttered. "I didn't think she'd find out." He said it on the record, in front of both legal teams, while the court reporter typed every single word. My lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "That's it. That's all we need." The courtroom wasn't full, but it felt heavy, like the air itself knew something big was about to happen. Ethan sat across from me, his hands clenched in his lap, face pale. His lawyer kept leaning in, whispering things, but Ethan just nodded like he wasn't even really hearing him. Lena sat 2 rows behind me. She'd driven in from Arizona with both kids. Her baby slept in her arms while her daughter played with a tablet. I'd made sure the judge knew she was coming. I wanted him to see everything. When the judge asked for opening remarks, my lawyer didn't hold back. She laid it all out: the stolen funds, the offshore accounts, the secret real estate, the fake wedding, the 2 sets of children, and the plan to disappear. Then she dropped the bomb: the recorded phone calls, the forged signatures, and most importantly, Ethan's own words from the deposition. Ethan's lawyer tried to deflect, said I was a controlling spouse, that I refused to have more children, and that Ethan had emotional needs that weren't being met. The judge wasn't buying it. Then Lena took the stand. She told the court how Ethan had told her I died, that he wore a wedding ring around her family, and said he was a widower, that he'd promised to marry her after paperwork with the business cleared. She even brought a copy of the Christmas cards Ethan had mailed out last year with their photo on it, posing as a full family, when she looked Ethan in the eye and said, "You told our daughter her real mother died in a car crash, and you expected me to go along with it?" The courtroom went silent. Ethan didn't even look up. It didn't take long. The judge ruled that Ethan had committed marital fraud, financial deception, and intentional emotional abuse. The divorce was finalized that day. The business was awarded to me, all of it. He was stripped of ownership and found guilty of misusing company funds. I was awarded 80% of the business value and assets, including the remaining trucks, accounts, equipment, and client contracts. His name was removed from every license, permit, and registration. He was also ordered to repay $287,000 in damages, money he'd stolen and laundered during the marriage. The IRS, they weren't done either. A criminal investigation had opened separately. They were building a case for tax evasion and international money laundering. If convicted, he'd be looking at years in federal prison. His sister pled out, got 2 years probation, and had to pay a fine. Her husband filed for divorce, and her kids were placed with him permanently. Ethan's mother, she showed up on the last day of court, sat in the back, glaring at me the whole time. She didn't speak, not to me, not to her son. She just stared like all this had happened to her. When the judge gave his final remarks, he said, This is one of the most cold-blooded deceptions I've seen in a marriage dissolution in years. Ethan moved into a one-bedroom apartment behind a vape shop in HMT. He has no savings. His credit is ruined. He's not allowed to run a registered business for 5 years per court order. The second house sold. The proceeds were awarded to me as restitution. Lena moved back to Utah to be near her parents. We still talk. Not often, but when we do, it's kind. There's no bad blood between us. She was lied to just like I was. She told me once, if I hadn't seen the photos through the window, I might have stayed another 10 years. She got child support through the court, but barely. Ethan now owes her back payments too. Interest is building every month. As for me, I kept the business rebranded. It hired new staff. Javier became my foreman. We expanded into commercial irrigation this year, and I finally replaced the cracked concrete driveway Ethan always said we couldn't afford to fix. Maya is in college now, on a scholarship. She knows everything. I didn't lie to her, and I didn't sugarcoat anything. She sees Ethan maybe once a year. She calls him Ethan, not Dad. It was at a gas station off I-15. He looked older, like life had eaten through him. Greasy hair, stained shirt, chain smoking with shaking hands. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He looked back, eyes empty, and said, "You ruined me." I smiled. "You did that yourself." Then I got back in my truck and drove off. He tried to take everything from me, my money, my business, my future. He planned to vanish, leave me in the wreckage while he played house in another state. He thought I was soft, that I'd stay quiet, that I'd cry and beg. He forgot who helped build it all. He thought I was weak. He was wrong. Now he has nothing, and I have peace, and I have peace. Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now let's get into today's tale. After hosting my in-laws for Thanksgiving, I found my credit card maxed out and my tools missing. When I confronted my wife, she said they needed help. "You always make it about you," I told her. I felt used. She walked out of the room and came back with my packed bag. "Maybe you're the one who doesn't belong here," she said. I slept in a motel that night, then drove somewhere I swore I'd never return to. Hey everyone, I don't even know how to start this. I'm still shaking a little. I never thought I'd be in this kind of situation, but here I am. Thanksgiving was supposed to be a time for family, right? A time to relax, to eat, to be around the people who care about you. But instead, it turned into the beginning of the biggest betrayal I've ever faced. My name's Mark. I'm 38. I live, or I guess lived, in Franklin, Tennessee with my wife Iris. We've been married 7 years. No kids, just the two of us. I work construction and do side jobs when I can. Drywall, remodeling, fence repairs, whatever keeps the lights on. Iris does social media stuff, or so I thought. This year, her family came down from Ohio. Her mom, dad, sister Emily, and Claire's husband Brian. They were supposed to stay from Wednesday to Sunday. They stayed until Monday afternoon. When they arrived, they acted like they owned the place. Loud, rude. Her dad left the front door wide open even though it was cold out. Brian parked on the lawn. Claire just dropped her bags in our guest room and started barking about being gluten-free. I tried to stay calm. I cooked. I helped set up the table. I drove her mom to CVS when she claimed she left her prescriptions at home. I even went out Black Friday morning to get extra eggs and milk because we didn't have enough for pancakes. I figured once they were gone, I'd rest. Instead, Monday hit like a hammer. I checked my credit card. I do it every week. It was nearly maxed out. $5,000 gone. I opened the transactions. Home Depot, Lowe's, a tire shop, Uber Eats, Best Buy, A vape store. I didn't recognize a single charge. My stomach dropped. I ran to the garage. My tool chest was almost empty. My brand new Milwaukee impact driver was gone. The DeWalt cordless drill, gone. My circular saw, I've had since my 20s, vanished. I stormed into the kitchen. Iris was on her phone, sipping a $6 iced coffee like nothing happened. "Where are my tools?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "What, my tools? The credit card?" "Who used them?" She sighed. "I think my dad and Brian took some stuff. They were going to fix the van." "Fix the van?" "That doesn't explain the credit card being maxed." "They borrowed it," I told them. "It was okay." "You told them it was okay to max out my card?" She finally looked up, annoyed. "They needed help." "Mark, you're always so obsessed with money. It's not like you're broke. I work 60 hours a week to keep us afloat. You gave away my tools and my money without asking. I feel like I don't matter to you." She rolled her eyes. "You always make it about you." That broke something in me. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at her. "I feel used," I said. She stood up, calm as could be, and walked to the bedroom. 2 minutes later, she came back out with my duffel bag packed. She dropped it by the door. "Maybe you're the one who doesn't belong here." I didn't say a word. I picked up the bag, walked out, and drove to a cheap motel off I-65. The room smelled like mold. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I became this guy. The guy who gets used and kicked out of his own house. By morning, I wasn't even thinking straight. I just started driving east, toward Kentucky, toward Ashland. I hadn't been back there in almost 20 years. I grew up in Ashland. My childhood wasn't great. Mom died young, Dad drank. I left at 18 and never looked back. But there was someone there I needed to see. Tony, my old best friend, my first real betrayal. When I was a teenager, I worked all summer at the mill, saved up $3,000. Tony convinced me to invest it with him. Said he'd found a deal on a used Mustang and we could flip it. I was dumb and trusted him. He flipped it all right, but he never gave me a dime. Used the money to impress some girl named Becky and ghosted me. I confronted him. He laughed in my face, said I should have known better. That was the last time we spoke. But I'd heard he'd made something of himself. A used car lot now. I drove straight there, pulled into the lot. It was sleazy looking, flags and banners, but he was standing right outside talking to a customer. He saw me and did a double take. "Mark, holy hell, is that really you?" I didn't smile. "Yeah, it's me." We went to a diner nearby. I told him everything about Iris, the card, the tools, the bag at the door. He listened, then he leaned in and said something I didn't expect. "You ever think about payback?" That's when things started to shift. I told him I wasn't sure what I wanted. I just felt hollow. I didn't know who to trust. Tony nodded and said, "Let me help." Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't trust him. But part of me wanted to believe he'd changed. He had resources now. He said he could find people and dig up info. I gave him names. Iris, her dad Walter, her brother-in-law Brian. He started looking, and what he found changed everything. Tony didn't take long. 3 days after I gave him the names, he called me back. Said he had something I needed to see. I met him at his lot. He had this smug look on his face. But it wasn't the same old "I'm screwing you" look I remembered from before. It was colder. Like he enjoyed what he was about to drop on me. "Iris hasn't had a real paycheck in 6 months," he said. I blinked. "What are you talking about? She's not working." "That's social media consulting? It's fake. She posts random crap online and tells you she's busy. I checked her accounts. No clients, no sponsors, no payments. just fake meetings on her calendar. He handed me a stack of screenshots, bank records, social media posts, even a text thread she had with her sister Claire. One of the messages said, "I just tell Dan I'm on a call. He's too busy laying. Tile to notice." Anyway, I felt sick. But that was just the beginning. Tony kept going. "Your tools, your card, all part of a bigger deal. Brian's been pawning tools all over Ohio and Tennessee for months. He flips them for cash, then gives a cut to Iris." "A cut?" I asked. My jaw clenched. He nodded. "She's helping in track targets. I found old texts between them. She gave him access to your garage and credit card. She told him what you had and when you'd be gone." He handed me a printout. There it was, clear as day. "Dan leaves early Thursday. Tools are in the red chest. Use the card for whatever, just don't tell Mom." Tony added, "Your father-in-law used the card too. Bought tires for his truck, then sold the truck 2 days later." I sat there for a minute. Didn't speak. Couldn't. Tony slid a phone across the table. "I also found this." He opened Tinder. There she was. Iris, new haircut, same wedding ring. Profile said, "Recently separated, looking for a fresh start. No drama." Tony looked at me. "You want more?" I shook my head. "No, that's enough." But it wasn't. I drove back to Franklin that night. Didn't sleep. Just sat in the parking lot of a Waffle House until sunrise. At 6 a.m., I called a locksmith and a local deputy, showed them the proof, told them I was the legal owner of the house, that I had evidence of financial abuse and theft. It was nigh enough. We changed the locks, took photos of everything. I packed up what was left of my tools, my documents, and some family stuff from storage. At 11 a.m., Iris came home. She was wearing yoga pants and carrying a smoothie. She stopped when she saw the locks, then saw the envelope on the porch. Inside was a stack of printouts, the texts, the Tinder profile, the bank info, pawn shop records, my divorce papers, and a note I wrote by hand. "You treated me like I was nothing. Now you get nothing." She pounded on the door, screamed, threatened to call the police. But I was already gone. I watched her through my side mirror as I pulled away. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, I got a call from my bank. Iris had tried to transfer $2,000 out of our joint savings, but I'd already locked the account. Then Brian started texting me. "Brian, you think you're smart? You just cost me a lot of money." Brian again. "This ain't over. You'll see?" I ignored it at first. But then things started happening. My truck's tires were slashed while I was parked at a job site. Somebody called in a fake report about stolen equipment, said I was working without a license. I spent half a day answering questions at the county office. One night I got home and found a dead squirrel nailed to my front door. I moved in with an old buddy. The next day, Tony offered to help again. I told him no. I wanted to do this part, myself. I started digging. Iris had opened 2 credit cards in my name. I didn't even know. She used my social sign me up and used the new cards to buy clothes, makeup, and God knows what else. One of the cards was opened 6 months ago, right around the time she stopped working. I reported the fraud, froze my credit, filed a police report. But then I found something worse. A burner phone hidden in the bottom drawer of her old desk. Inside were messages between her and someone saved as Kay. It didn't take long to figure out Kay was Eric, one of my old co-workers. They were sleeping together for months. Eric, of all people. He worked with me for 2 years on the West Side apartment job. We shared tools, traded shifts, even shifts, split gas money on long hauls. I thought he was a good guy. Quiet, kind of awkward. Said he lived with his mom to save money. I never once suspected anything. But the messages in that burner phone made everything clear. They'd been meeting at hotels during her work calls, sometimes even in our house when I was working overnight drywall gigs. She would text him, "He's gone tonight. Come through after 9 on Be Quiet." One text hit me the hardest. "I don't love Dan. He's just a paycheck and a roof. You're what I look forward to." That was sent 6 months ago, around the time she stopped pretending to work, around the time she started draining our accounts. They talked about moving in together, about Brian helping them clean me out legally. They had a whole plan. I felt like a ghost, like I had died months ago and didn't even know it. Tony was right. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. I decided I wasn't just going to run. I was going to burn it all down. First, I met with a lawyer. I handed him every text, screenshot, financial document, and the burner phone. He said he'd never seen, "Will file under financial abuse, marital fraud, and adultery," he said. Then I called the licensing board, told them about Brian's little pawn side hustle, gave them addresses, names, receipts from the pawn shop where my tools ended up. They opened a case. Then I contacted HR at my old construction firm, told them what Eric had done. Not just sleeping with my wife, but accessing job details from my computer and stealing side gigs meant for me. He'd gotten 3 referrals through my name. I had proof in emails. Eric got fired by the end of the week. But then came the twist that really changed everything. Iris's mom called me. Not to apologize, no. She was pissed. "Why are you trying to ruin our family?" she said. "You're not even officially divorced yet." I didn't say much, just that the police would be in touch about the fraudulent cards. But then she slipped, said something I'll never forget. "We helped you. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for Walter's loan." Loan? I never got a loan from her dad. Or so I thought. I went through old documents, statements, everything. And then I found it, hidden in a stack of insurance paperwork. Iris had filed a signed agreement with my forged signature. Iris had taken out a $15,000 personal loan in my name last year. Her dad co-signed. The money was deposited into her personal checking account. I sat there shaking. She didn't just cheat. She didn't just lie. She built a whole life on my back and planned to throw me out once the money was gone. Then another piece clicked. Tony called me and said, "You might want to check her email, the one you said she never uses. We hacked into it. Don't ask how. He's got friends." There was a message from a lawyer, dated 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Subject line, "Prenup loophole inquiry." Iris had already been looking into how to get around our prenup. She wasn't going to ask for a divorce. She was going to trap me, get me, to screw up, maybe hit her, maybe walk out in anger, so she could frame me, get the house, and keep the assets. She'd been playing the long game, but I'd flipped the script. Now she was locked out of the house. She was being investigated. Her affair and fraud were in legal records, and Eric, well, I had one more surprise for him. Eric lived in a rundown duplex outside of Murraysboro. I drove there one evening, around 6:00, just after he got off work. What was left of it, since getting fired? He picked up day labor gigs and was barely hanging on. I knocked. He opened the door with that same smug little grin I used to mistake for harmless. "Dan," he said. "Man, I was wondering when you'd come say something." Dodie didn't say a word, just held up a thumb drive. "What's that?" "Everything. The texts, the hotel receipts, even the messages where you joked about using my bed." His face paled. "You want money or something?" "No," I said. "I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything." Then I handed him a legal envelope. It was a lawsuit. My lawyer drafted it the day before. Civil damages, defamation, interference in a marriage, theft of work leads. It wasn't about money. It was about dragging his name into the system and pinning it there forever. He slammed the door. Didn't matter. His landlord would serve him the papers the next day. He'd be paying court fees before he could pay rent. Iris was worse off. I turned in all the evidence. The credit card companies launched their own investigations. She was charged with fraud for the cards she opened in my name. Brian was investigated for selling stolen property. The pawnshop owner gave up everything: video footage, receipts, texts between them. The construction licensing board suspended Brian's contracting license. Her dad got roped in for co-signing that fraudulent loan. The bank was pressing charges for identity theft and forging my signature. Iris tried to play the victim. She even cried in court during the first hearing, but the judge wasn't buying it. She lost everything in the divorce. No spousal support, no house, no claim to my assets. The prenup held up. I made sure of it. She walked away with nothing but her car and a trash bag full of clothes. And because of the fraud charges, her credit got wrecked. She couldn't rent an apartment under her name, couldn't get approved for a loan, and last I heard, she was couch hopping between her sister's and an ex-friend's place. The final nail, I sent copies of the Tinder profile, burner phone texts, and financial records to every one of her fake clients on LinkedIn and Facebook. Turns out, when you pretend to be a businesswoman and word gets out, you committed fraud and cheated your way through your marriage. People stop responding to your DMs. She tried to restart her consulting brand. It flopped fast. Ray, he surprised me. After everything he did to me as a kid, I didn't think I could trust him. But he stuck by me, helped me sort the mess, introduced me to the right lawyer, even showed up to one of the court hearings for support. After it was all over, we grabbed a drink and sat on the tailgate of his truck. "I still owe you $3,000, he said. "You paid it back already," I told him, in a different way. We didn't talk about the past after that. We didn't need to. As for me, I moved, sold the house, bought a smaller place in Knoxville. Quiet neighborhood, lots of trees. No freeloaders, no screaming in-laws, no betrayal in the walls. It took time to feel normal again. I still check my accounts every day, still keep my tools locked up tighter than Fort Knox, still look over my shoulder when I hear certain voices. But I'm free, and I got the one thing they never expected. Peace, final score. Iris charged with fraud. Ruined credit, lost marriage, no assets, career destroyed. Brian under investigation, license suspended, income gone. Eric sued, fired, reputation trashed, broke. Iris's dad facing legal consequences for loan fraud. Iris's mom blocked from my phone, forever. Me? I walked away clean, stronger and done being used. They thought they could break me, but I don't break. I build. And this time, I built a fire that burned their lies to the